Today from the global lane, the Middle East is on the brink of monumental change. Will their leaders choose peace and prosperity or more death and destruction?
Hamas has been defeated, basically. Hezbollah is a shadow of what it was, as well as Iran now. We're on the cusp of something that really could change the dynamics of the Middle East.
Iran pledges to rebuild its nuclear program. Talks with the United States may be coming.
Are the Iranians going to be very excited to get back to the negotiating table? Because if they are, it means that they don't have much cards to play with and that their nuclear program has been indeed backtracked.
Missing for several weeks, China's President Xi resurfaces in public. Is he still in control?
There are many signs that Xi Jinping has been weakened. In the Politburo, they clearly are limiting Xi Jinping's power.
The Texas flood disaster, lives and homes swept away. Instead of wondering why, asking who and what. And it's all right here on the global lane. On the edge of a ceasefire in Gaza and the threshold of a monumental change throughout the Middle East. First, earlier this week, big news came out of Hebron. 5 Arab clan sheikhs sent a letter to Israel's economy minister recognizing Israel as a Jewish state and stating their goal of having Hebron secede from the Palestinian Authority. In 2018, the late Scott Ross interviewed a Hebron sheikh from one of the clans, Ashraf Jabri, along with his Jewish neighbor and friend, Noam Arnan. Little did we know then that their views and advocacy would blaze a new pathway to peace 7 years later. Here's a portion of that interview.
The PLO signed the Oslo agreements 25 years ago. Until today, we didn't reach peace. It's the opposite. We started with a very big problem.
In the Oslo Accord, the Israeli government had brought the PLO to control the local population. And they said, you bring those people, the corrupted and the terrorists, to control us. Why? I feel ashamed about it. We disappointed them, we betrayed them.
What did the PLO think of you?
I don't care what the PLO thinks about me. What's important for me is how we can all live together in this area, in the state of Israel.
Have you been able to influence other Arabs and other leaders to your way of thinking?
Yes, of course. 90% of the Palestinian people are looking for their own future.
CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us here in the studio. Chris, I want to get your thoughts on this Gaza ceasefire, but first,
Sure.
This Hebron letter and these 5 sheikhs and their clans, I mean, that is very significant. Your thoughts?
Very significant and could be a game changer, Gary. And sort of Scott, our late colleague there, was sort of ahead of the game 7 years ago. And this
a bit
represents prophetic indeed.
Yeah.
And I would think that this represents the view of many Palestinians that don't get the attention they would want. Sometimes because of fear for their own lives, because this kind of dialogue, this kind of sentiment that they want to actually join the Abraham Accords, recognize a Jewish state, is not welcome in parts of the Palestinian Authority. It represents a very pointed threat to the Palestinian Authority, to Mahmoud Abbas, the president, who's now in, I think, the 17th year of his 4-year term. But many people don't really appreciate the Palestinian Authority. They know them, they're corrupt. And certainly from an Israeli point of view, they advocate pay to slay. They encourage terrorism. But this could be a game changer with the caveat, Gary, that there are opposition already against these 5 clans.
Well, we're seeing since the 12-day war with Iran, it seems like a change.
Yeah. If you remember, since October 7th, the darkest day in the state of Israel since the Holocaust and for the Jewish people, and now we have that Hamas has been defeated, basically. Hezbollah is a shadow of what it was, as well as Iran now. And we're seeing a shifting of nations throughout the Middle East, the possibility of other nations like Syria, Lebanon, maybe Saudi Arabia actually joining the Abraham Accords and maybe part of the Palestinian people.
Well, let's talk about Lebanon. U.S. envoy to Syria, Tom Barak, met with Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and said this.
What we're doing is saying, you want change, you change it, and we'll be there to support you. If you don't want change, it's no problem. The rest of the region is moving at Mach speed, and you will be left behind. Sadly, you will be left behind. And this is really the message. It's the message from Secretary Rubio. It's the message from President Trump. It's the message from the world. is come on, get with it. You're the pearl of the Mediterranean.
Chris, Barack was referring to disarming Hezbollah, and that would go along with the UN resolution, 1701, 19 years ago, by the way, never taken effect. Lebanese government seems to be afraid of civil war starting again if they disarm Hezbollah. So do you think it's going to happen? Will they be disarmed?
It could be. I think what Israel is doing right now, since the ceasefire, is actually disarming Hezbollah day by day. They're hitting targets. They're hitting Hezbollah operatives and terrorists inside South Lebanon. They're hitting tunnels. They're hitting weapons caches. So Israel is already doing the job. The question is, will the Lebanese army continue to do the job? But we're seeing, you know, the statements like this, and we're seeing some Lebanese politicians speaking out against Hezbollah and talking that they have led the Lebanese people down the wrong path. They want to change. And so this opens up an opportunity for maybe some sort of normalization with Israel. Certainly opposition by the people of Hezbollah that are still adhere to that kind of Shiite ideology. But we're seeing maybe a possibility of major changes in Lebanon.
Well, let's talk about one of those, Syria. The Syrian president, al-Shara, was just in the UAE meeting with the heads of the government there. And he has said, I guess there are reports out that he may be meeting with Netanyahu in Washington in September to begin this normalization of relations process. He wants to see a part of the Golan returned, maybe a third of it, if not returned, at least a lease, so he can placate some of the radical elements in his own country. Will that happen?
Well, it seems to be on its way. I mean, and President Trump seems to be the one pushing this. I mean, he met with al-Shara and President Erdogan not too long ago, and he's the one is lifting this the sanctions against Syria. So it seems like President Trump wants to continue this this momentum towards an Abraham Accords. You know, when I was leaving Israel and I had to go through Amman to come back here to the United States, our taxi driver said his dream is to have breakfast in Amman, lunch in Damascus, and dinner in Beirut. And you know, maybe we're on the cusp of something that really could change the dynamics of the Middle East.
And quickly, Chris, the Gaza ceasefire, is it going to happen?
It remains to be seen whether or not they're going to have a ceasefire and pull out of Gaza, or they're going to actually stay in Gaza and maybe have a military governing entity there for some time. We'll see. It's lots of moving parts. Certainly, Gary, people need to be praying for wisdom, for Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Trump, and the peace of Jerusalem.
The peace of Jerusalem. Thank you, Chris Mitchell, our Middle East Bureau Chief, for joining us here in the studio.
Great to be with you, Gary.
I spent many years here.
Now available.
Though I'm not from this land.
From CBN Films.
And I've returned with a message.
I Am Patrick. Get your DVD today for a gift of any dollar amount.
Get going, boy.
A splendid account of St. Patrick.
I received a divine revelation.
Inspiring.
He didn't know what he faced, possible death.
I Am Patrick tells his story with truth.
Preach the gospel to every creature.
Candor.
This mission was crazy.
And beauty.
Christ the Lord told me to come here to preach the gospel.
Featuring John Rhys Davies. I Am Patrick. Get your DVD today for a gift of any dollar amount. Call 1-888-700-7000 or go to iampatrick.com.
I got into a serious relationship, but his family was like involved in Santeria. They would do like Ouija boards and like, I mean, everything that you can think of like occult, like they were in it. And I feel like something just like sit on me. Like I was like shaking, crying. I just called out to Jesus. From that moment, I felt like God took it and was like, I'm gonna heal you.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Battered and beaten from the 12-day war with Israel. What is the Ayatollah's next step to demonstrate that Iran may be down but not out as an influential force in the Middle East? Just before the U.S. bombing raid on Iranian nuclear sites, American intelligence detected the Iranian military loading naval mines onto vessels in the Persian Gulf. Although ballistic missile and drone strikes have stopped for now, what's the likelihood that Iran may take action to block shipping lanes, especially oil traffic, through the strategically important Strait of Hormuz? Well, joining us is Middle East analyst, Young Voices Middle East History and Peace Fellow, Abdullah Hayek. Abdullah, you believe the Iranian leaders may want to flex their muscles to demonstrate Iran is still a powerful force in the Middle East, but disrupting the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, wouldn't that be economic suicide for Iran?
It would most certainly be economic suicide for Iran. I think Iran's very few cards it has left to deal with on the global economic platform is its oil, and it happens to send it to one of its closest allies, China. And China would not be happy if a sudden cutoff of Iranian oil would be imposed. And as you mentioned, it'd be suicide. But I think Iran will happen to consider that in the event that the situation escalates in the region. But right now, as we've seen with the ceasefire, I don't think Iran is going to escalate to that level yet. If there is a re-escalation of hostilities again between Israel and Iran and possibly a second U.S. intervention, that's a very likely scenario.
Well, I'll remind our viewers that Libya's Muammar Gaddafi mined the Red Sea and the Suez Canal in 1984, and I was there covering that international minesweeping effort, and that didn't work out too well for Gaddafi. What else might Iran do to leverage its position in possible peace talks?
Well, Iran still has a lot more cards to play with besides the Strait of Hormuz closure. It still has considerable capabilities within its proxies, within the axis of resistance. Although Hamas is pretty much decimated by the Israelis in Gaza, there's still the Houthis in Yemen that still pose a serious danger in the Red Sea. The Assad regime in Syria is no more. The playground for Iran's proxies and their threatening of U.S. allies such as Syria, such as Jordan, Israel, the Saudis has gone. Hezbollah has been very much weakened, but still poses a threat, and the same extends to the Iraqi Shia militias, the Popular Mobilization Forces. So the proxies still pose a threat. But I think the major threat that Iran poses is, as we've seen, is the airborne threat it has. Its sophisticated drone and missile program, in which it uses a saturation assault where it exhausts the air defenses of American allies in the region. And as we've seen, it has managed to land and hit positions in Israel, with over 28 dead in Israel. That's the first time in many decades.
Yeah, they probably have the most extensive missile capability and drone capability in the Middle East. And the Pentagon reports that Operation Midnight Hammer has set back the Iranian nuclear program by 1 to 2 years. Is there any evidence they will attempt to reconstitute their program, or do you think they will agree to halt their nuclear enrichment and development efforts?
I think that the Iranian response to Operation Midnight Hammer was a major reason that indicates that the nuclear program hasn't been fully decimated. It has been struck, it has been affected, and it has been backtracked. But due to the medium to low response that we've seen by hitting missiles towards Al Udeid base in Qatar, 14 missiles, that doesn't really indicate that they're really angry that their program has been decimated, but it has been affected. So I think the signs that we have to look for is, are the Iranians going to be very excited to get back to the negotiating table? Because if they are, it means that they don't have much cards to play with and that their nuclear program has been indeed backtracked.
Well, President Trump still believes that more than 4 decades of enmity between the U.S. and Iran can be overcome and replaced with good relations and economic opportunities. What do you think lies ahead?
I seriously doubt that the current regime in Tehran is a is in any position to be dealt with in a positive manner. They have been extremely hostile, not just to the United States, but to the whole region, Arabs and Israelis alike. They have intervened in the internal affairs of nearly every government in the region. They wish to topple every Western-backed government in the region. I don't think they're the partner that anyone wants to deal with. Are we going to see regime change in Iran? That's, very likely and unlikely at the same time. I think that the major step that needs to be taken by who? It has to be the Iranian people. Are they willing to take the step and remove their government and elect a government that wants to integrate with the region and the world as a whole? That has to be the step. But I don't think that American boots in Persian sands right now is a very good choice for the Trump administration.
Well, the people of Iran don't have the guns, so they need to overthrow the regime. We'll see what happens there. Young Voices Fellow Abdullah Hayek, thank you for sharing your insights with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I believe the time has come to begin a battle of annihilation.
They divided my land. They divided the land of God.
In these 3 weeks, people felt like there is going to be a second Holocaust.
I just started this job 10 months ago. Now you want me to plan an entire war in 2 days?
Yes.
People were very motivated, but to say that there was no fear is telling a lie.
You're scared until the first shot. The minute the first shot is being fired, you're bent on completing your mission.
If we break through those walls now, the whole world will stand on its head.
To be right here, Mota, and not to go in, history will never forgive you.
Are you going crazy? You'll set the whole Middle East on fire.
He became a voice for the common man.
In a matter of months, Luther became a household word.
Nobody knows what happened to him. Luther disappears.
He became a European-wide phenomenon.
Luther would influence hundreds, if not thousands, of leaders, ministers, thinkers in his day and after him.
Martin Luther. Get your DVD for a gift of any dollar amount. Introducing a brand new way to start your morning, the CBN News Quick Start Podcast. Each weekday morning at 7 a.m., get quick highlights of the day's important news. Then an in-depth analysis that goes beyond the headlines. Insights that matter to people of faith. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Find the CBN News Quick Start Podcast on iTunes or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts, because truth matters.
After being unseen for several weeks, Chinese President Xi Jinping has now resurfaced, missing the BRICS summit for the first time. Has Xi lost favor with the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Liberation Army? Joining us to share his thoughts is China analyst with the Gatestone Institute, Gordon Chang. His most recent book is Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon, the CCP's political bureau took steps late last month to lessen Xi's authority, giving him more power to, or actually giving more power to central commissions. And also, he may have fallen into disfavor with some generals within the People's Liberation Army. So tell us what's happening. Is Xi on the way out?
Xi Jinping certainly is weakened, Gary. And we can see this most clearly in the Chinese military, where Xi Jinping loyalists are disappearing. Now, a lot of people say that Xi Jinping is sacking his own people, but that's probably not true. And the reason is we have seen in PLA Daily, which is the main propaganda organ of the Chinese military, a series of articles from the middle of last year praising collective leadership. That's a direct slap at Xi Jinping, which means that these articles could not have appeared if Xi Jinping were controlling the military, which means it's more likely that Xi Jinping's adversaries are sacking Xi Jinping's loyalists in uniform. Now, in the civilian area, the corroboration is not as clear, but nonetheless, there are many signs that Xi Jinping has been weakened, including those regulations on June 30 from the Politburo that you just talked about. They clearly are limiting Xi Jinping's power. Xi Jinping missing the BRICS summit is a real sign of weakening influence. People think that he could lose his 3 important posts. Some people say he'll be kept on as a figurehead. But clearly right now, there's a lot of turmoil in the Chinese regime. And the Chinese regime right now is not stable.
Well, Xi led what he described as an anti-corruption campaign against military generals. Was it a genuine anti-corruption effort, or was it him eliminating his opponents from the military?
He was eliminating his opponents from the military. We know that corrupt generals were indeed disappeared, but almost every general and admiral is corrupt in the Chinese military. So corruption is not the reason why. Xi Jinping was consolidating his control. And at one time, if we go back maybe 3 or so years ago, Xi Jinping was in full control of the Chinese military. And it was not only his purges that you just referred to, it was also his radical and very successful restructuring of the People's Liberation Army in the middle of last decade. That gave Xi a lot of power to change generals, and he did that. But right now, he has lost control of the most powerful faction in the Communist Party, which is the Chinese military.
Gordon, you and I discussed, I think it was probably 9 years ago, he was given a special leader status, only previously given to Mao Zedong. And then term limits were thrown out. He's now, what, I think in his unprecedented 3rd term as president and Communist Party general secretary. So would he voluntarily step down or be forced out? Why?
Yeah, it's very unlikely that he is voluntarily giving up power, because that's not his style. He has spent his time at the top of the Communist Party accumulating power. And what's happened is when he accumulated power, he also accumulated accountability. And he is now being blamed for the simultaneous crises that are afflicting China. If you were Xi Jinping in 2017, you were on top of the world because you were getting credit for everything that was happening, which looked good for China. But if you're Xi Jinping in the COVID crisis or post-COVID, you're being blamed for everything, and properly so. So life is very, very difficult.
Trump says that the U.S. has a good relationship now with China. So what effect have Trump's tariffs had on Xi Jinping and China, and is a final deal close?
I don't think a final deal is close. China may agree to something, but they're not going to comply. And we saw that. We already had a trade deal with China May 12th, and China just promptly violated its obligations. It did not resume exports of rare earth as it promised to do. So, yeah, we may end up with a deal with China, but I don't think it's going to be comprehensive. And if it is, China's not just going to comply. They haven't complied with their trade deals from the time they joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. So why should they start doing so now? I just don't think that that's reasonable to expect.
And Gordon, quickly, I know this week Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins unveiled a National Farm Security Action Plan addressing China's purchase of U.S. farmland, especially near military bases. How serious is it? What do you expect to happen on that front?
I think eventually we will see prohibitions of Chinese nationals purchasing U.S. farm and ranch land. And, got to remember, no American can own a square inch of land in China. So why do we allow Chinese nationals to own square miles of land in our country, especially when we know that some of them are using them for malign purposes?
Okay, Gordon Chang, Gatestone Institute, China analyst, author of the book, Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Thank you, Gordon, for joining us.
Thank you, Gary.
I wanted to be a boy one week. I wanted to be a girl next week. It was constantly like that, confusion always in my mind. I always felt like I was more in tune to femininity.
At 16, Tommy decided it was time to give in to those desires. Now addicted to meth, he dropped out of school and began frequenting gay chat rooms and nightclubs.
I had an internal knowing that it was just wrong.
Despite his doubts, Tommy started taking female hormones and making plans to have a sex change operation. Tommy was doing drugs with his brother and sister when he felt an oppressive, paralyzing fear.
Terrified, Tommy left the house and went to his mom, who had recently committed her life to Christ.
I had to cry out to God because I just knew in that moment that He was the only one that was able to help me. So I remember just telling Him, I'm sorry of the lifestyle that I was living. I just went into this deep place of repenting and asking for forgiveness. If Jesus did it for me, he could do it for you. We all need a Savior. We all come from a place of brokenness.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
And that's the hope, and that's the whole conceit of the show, is seeing Jesus through the eyes of those who met him.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
That was the moment that I knew that I was called to music.
Watch on CBNFamily.com or on the CBN News Channel.
The Texas flood tragedy and the loss of life, especially children, has grieved people not only here in America but around the world. Posting a comforting and thoughtful message to X, Pastor Greg Laurie reminds us it is okay to ask God why he allowed this death and destruction. Laurie contends we may never get an answer to life's why questions. Even Jesus asked God, "Why have you forsaken me?"
So it's at times like this that we pivot to the who question, as in, who do we turn to? And the answer is simple. We turn to God. The Bible tells us that the Lord is near to those who are brokenhearted. And I can tell you from personal experience, there is no more heartbreaking event that can happen to a parent than to lose a child. 16 years ago, the Lord called our son Christopher unexpectedly home to heaven, and we still grieve that loss. We think about him every day. You need to mourn, you need to weep, you need to cry, but cry out to God. And the Bible promises that he will comfort us when we mourn.
So more important than the why is the who. Who do we turn to when tragedy, hardship, and suffering strike? I would also ask another important question, and that is what? What now, Lord? What does God expect from us? What does he want us to do? First, he expects us to pray, as Trump's cabinet did in their White House meeting this week. James 5:16 tells us that the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. Secondly, ask God's Holy Spirit to show you what he wants you to do. It may be giving a donation to groups like Mercy Chefs, who are providing meals for first responders and those people who have lost their homes or loved ones. So also, you could help disaster relief efforts like those of Operation Blessing, which help people to recover by removing debris and repairing their homes. Finally, God may tell you to go and help. It may mean leaving your job or your family for a while. But are you willing to go and serve others if God calls you? Will you respond as Isaiah did, with "Here I am, send me"? Jesus' brother James wrote, "Faith without works is dead." So let's pray for Texas and bring help and hope to those in need and life to our faith. Well, that's it today from the Global Lane. Until next time, be blessed.